women taking care of each other. And so this is something that industry leaders are not able to replicate because they are so big. They've lost or taken their pulse off of lived experiences that women face every single day. When we get into a rideshare, not always just thinking about safety, but also thinking about comfort, about feeling comfortable, being with my peers. It gives me a more relaxing feeling. And so that's how we're different and how we believe that we're differentiating ourselves between the big guys.
This is the Angel Next Door podcast, where we will talk about all things angel investing, what it is, who does it, how do we find them, what does it mean to invest in an early stage company. If you have ever wondered how you can affect the change you want to see in the world, then tune in to learn more. In this episode, I'm talking to Kimberly Evans, CEO of Just Her Rideshare, a company revolutionizing safe transportation for women. Kim shares her deeply personal journey as a 4-time entrepreneur, which includes launching a women-centric rideshare platform. She's building an authentic community, competing with industry giants, and tackling the challenges of fundraising as a Black female founder. Plus, we get to hear her candid take on why she decided to do crowdfunding through WeFunder and what it takes to orchestrate a successful campaign. Enjoy the show. Kimberly, welcome to the Angel Next Door podcast. I am so excited to have you here. I've been watching your journey. We have this kind of relationship that's been going on for quite a while between meeting at Stella at the Women's Venture Summit, which is coming up in September of this year. And I'm excited to hear more about your journey. And also, we love to talk on the podcast about crowdfunding and certainly about crowdfunding campaigns, how you're marketing it, what you're thinking about it, how it's working. I know you have a crowdfunding campaign open right now, so we're going to talk a lot about that. Why don't you start off, just tell us a little bit about your background and how did you end up becoming the CEO of Just Her Rideshare?
Well, first of all, Marcia, thank you so much for having me. I understand that this is a little unorthodox to have me as a founder on your podcast, but I always say founder today, angel investor tomorrow.
That's exactly right.
A little bit about me. I'm 4th generation, 4-time entrepreneur. It's not my first rodeo. I've been down this path a few times. I come from a long line of entrepreneurs. Also had a 21-year career, so I've been on both sides of the aisle. Actually, I was introduced to the ride-sharing industry as a business opportunity. It resonated with me right away because I was my own customer. Until 2023, I had never taken a rideshare. And I had not taken a rideshare because of my feelings of insecurity and vulnerability around being in a stranger's car, stranger danger, of course. But I also had some very tragic things to happen to me. I lost a dear friend, and it made me feel vulnerable. And when Uber and Lyft and all of the rideshare companies became this huge phenomenon, it was not something I was eager to take part in just because I just didn't feel comfortable. I thought, hey, if I am the customer, let me just try and see if there are other women who feel like I do. So I started to dig a little deeper and do some research. And I found out that there were other women who at least wanted this option to choose how they experience riding with others. That's how we launched Just Her Rideshare. We started to dig even deeper, and we found some tragic stories that really pushed us into really stepping out into this space and creating safe spaces for women to have options to choose.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about how Just Her Rideshare is different.
So Just Her Rideshare is different because we are a niche market. We're women-centric. We do focus on women in many cases in underserved markets. And we feel like that we're creating a deeper connection with our users. We're unlocking what I think is this powerful opportunity where big players like industry leaders can or won't go, because it also allows us to tailor services. And we feel like big players can't replicate without losing their brand appeal. Not only do we pay our drivers more and build community with them, treat them like they're more than their vehicle to women taking care of each other. This is something that industry leaders are not able to replicate because they are so big. They've lost or taken their pulse off of lived experiences that women face every single day. When we get into a rideshare, not always just thinking about safety, but also thinking about comfort, about feeling comfortable, being with my peers. It gives me a more relaxing feeling. That's how we're different and how we believe that we're differentiating ourselves between the big guys.
Yeah. All of the drivers then are women and all of the customers are women.
All of the drivers are women, 100%. We have, I would say 99% of our passengers are women. We do transport male passengers because we're more than just a ride to the airport. We are building community. We are solving transportation problems. And with that, we partner with nonprofit organizations who support their communities. And sometimes there are male passengers who are involved in their communities. We want to be a support and extension to solving transportation problems. In those cases, we will transport male passengers, but also keep in mind that our early adopters and most of our women are already used to working in the gig space. They're used to transporting male passengers, but they just want the option to be able to opt out if something doesn't feel comfortable or safe. As long as it feels good and feels safe for them, they will actually pick up male passengers. And we don't stop them. If they want to earn that revenue, it's totally up to them. What we do is provide the empowerment to have that option to choose.
I love that. This is quite an undertaking. You're going up against some pretty big players that are in this space, but you have such a niche and really important piece of what you're building and what you're trying to provide. Tell us more about what it's like to go up against such big players.
Yeah. Well, I never felt like we were going up against them, not straight up and down. It would be ludicrous to think that even a niche market, even though we have the ability to refine and stay in our lane and build something powerful, we knew that we could not compete. We didn't have a gazillion dollars to market. We understood that we were entering an industry that was tough just by industry standard. Mobility transportation is huge, and there are huge problems that need to be solved in this space. But we also knew that we didn't have millions of marketing dollars to build out this marketplace. It's just really tough. There's no way to look at it. It's not an easy feat. But we've always felt like if we stayed in our lane and if we focused on what they did not do well, then we would have a chance. And what we found was because they had become so big, because they had lost a touch with lived experiences, we felt if we stay in our lane, if we show up on the same playground and play a better game, they will eat away at that market share. And here's the beauty of it is that we didn't have to spend millions of dollars to do this. We didn't reinvent the wheel. They had already laid a table before us. But what we found was that if we played where they played, which is where the gig workers are, they're the DoorDashes, the Uber Eats, the Grubhubs, and then we would do a better job at building community, paying them more, respecting them more, then we felt like it wasn't like that we needed to disrupt them. We just needed to offer a better service. That's how we've been successful. We literally spent little to no paid marketing dollars, not because we didn't want to, but because we really didn't have to. We feel like now to scale, we do. But again, we just showed up on the same playground and we just played a better game. And that's how we've been able to compete in a sense.
Wow, that's so good. Tell us then about your fundraising journey before we get to the crowdfunding campaign now.
Oh, wow. A fundraise. That's a very interesting topic. When we started, I had been in business before. I'd been in finance. I'd been in fashion on the educational side. When I became a full-time entrepreneur in 2011, I built my own call center around quality assurance and client support. I became obsessed with customer journeys and all of that. And that's my sweet spot. But I also knew that I needed to see if this was going to stick. I needed to see if we were going to have a product market fit. With that being said, we started out bootstrapping. I took the most risk. I've gotten the most money invested in this company, my family's money, because my husband believed in this so much and he's been my number one supporter. But I knew that we had to figure this out, that it wasn't going to be as easy as saying, oh, hey, I'm going to start a rideshare. In fact, I wish at some point that I had never added rideshare to the company. Like I just figured out Just Her and then explained what it was. Because every time you think of ridesharing, it's synonymous with Uber and Lyft. We're always compared to them. But anyway, so we started bootstrapping just to see if we had a product market fit. And then we started to share the company. We started to pitch the company and get those feedback loops going and see. We did lots of customer discovery. We became a part of our area's ecosystems, which was so amazing because we knew we'd have the support. And then we set out on this fundraising trail, Marcia. If anybody had told me what it was going to be like before we started, I think I would have maybe gone the other way. But we knew we needed to do it. We knew that we couldn't scale and grow the company without it. It's been literally the hardest thing that I've had to do in my business career. It's just been brutal. That's just all I can say. I knew starting out, I'd heard the stories of the lack of funding. And that's been the one thing that has hurt our company over everything else, has been the long funding gaps that we've experienced. It slowed down our progress. It has crippled us in many ways of building and scaling, but we've just been able to persevere through some really tough times. I heard the stories, but I didn't know because I had never raised capital before. My husband and I were always fortunate enough to bootstrap our own businesses. I barely knew what a cap table was when I started, Marcia.
Right.
Seriously. No.
Yeah.
And then I had this fear around asking people to write me $1 million check. I said, who does that, right? Then I got over the fear. I learned about what it would be to fundraise. And then even with all of the research that I did, all of the conversations I had with advisors about what is this journey really going to be like, I still wasn't prepared for it. In short version, it's been very difficult to fundraise.
Wow, I can only imagine. First of all, it's very challenging to fundraise without any other factors involved.
Yes.
Okay, being female, being a person of color, and being in an environment right now as well. I shouldn't even say right now. How about from 2022 until through now? And I thought it was going to get better in 2025, and we still haven't seen that happen. it has just been a really tough market due to the high interest rates and investors, especially angel investors, which I'm sure you've pitched to plenty. We as angel investors, we start to feel poor when we see the stock market having lots of fluctuations, public markets. So yeah, it's been a challenge for sure. What then led you to think, okay, I think it's time to do a crowdfunding campaign?
I love that you're asking that because it was very intentional and very specific. Our team, we were working on what could be the next few cities that we could launch. We know that North Carolina was a great case study for us, and we're still growing and we're still evolving, but we realized statistically that it was a very car-centric state, that Charlotte is a very car-centric city unless you're urban or rural. Most households are two-car homes. We knew that we had to get to more populous areas where there was more density. We started thinking about what would be the next city. We looked at DC, we looked at Northern Virginia, we looked at Nashville. Well, we decided because we feel like we are more than a ride share, more than a ride to the airport. We are a community mobility company because we have this side, this B2B side that partners with nonprofit organizations to provide transportation solutions. We thought, let's go in and talk with the community. What better way to roll up in a community, let them know, here's what we're doing, and ask them for their help. They're going to be able to tell us where the pain points are. They're going to be able to tell us where the most needs are. We knew we could not go into a city like DC. We knew there were other transportation companies there. We knew we had to compete with the metro. We had to be very strategic and focus on localization. These conversations that we went to have with focus groups helped us to understand our go-to-market strategy. Well, here's what we found when we got there. We got to DC. We went for a focus group. And then later that evening, we had an investment dinner, a private dinner. A friend of mine had put together for angel investors, minimum 10K. We had this wonderful event. When we got there, we did walk away with a couple of investments, but we listened to what they were saying. And a lot of them were impacted by the decisions that were coming out of the new administration in terms of contracting. Most of these people had built dynasties around government contracting. And now they were holding their purse very close to their chest. And they were saying, well, hey, I can't write you a $50,000 check. But is there some other way I can help? And then we started pitching, well, would you be willing to help if we started our very first community equity crowdfunding? And many of those people said yes. And it's been those people who have invested $1,000, $5,000. We've got some 10K investments that we're closing on next week on the platform as well. That is the one thing that said, well, maybe it's time that we try to get the community involved. And then also, Marcia, not to mention that things are just tough because we don't fit the mold. And you and I, as women, as receiving those dollars traditionally, we knew we were up against a giant to begin with, but this helped us to see another path. This helped us to say, are we going to walk away from this company, or are we going to at least try this and see if we can get some more traction? That's why we decided to launch the WeFunder campaign.
I am just so fascinated at the diligence that you've taken throughout your entire journey with this company, but actually putting focus groups together at every step as you were going through this is so incredibly valuable. And I think in a lot of cases, entrepreneurs just think, I got this great idea, I'm going to go. Let me just go forward. But, that isn't always the best thing. And you can end up wasting a lot of time, wasting a lot of money, having to fundraise for more money after you just lost the other money because it didn't work out. Tell us a little bit more, like, how did you find the focus groups? How did you get the information from them that you really needed?
Absolutely. It was absolutely wonderful. What I did, I have this ability to look at what's not working. And it's not being pessimistic. It is obviously being very realistically. I've worked in every aspect of this company. I know what's working and what's not working. And I'm not of the delusion that we have arrived, that we figured it out. And if we just build it, they will come, right? I just don't believe that's happening in my industry with what we're trying to build, going up against giants like Uber and Lyft and other larger transportation companies. And because I'm so driven by community, Marcia, it was very easy for me to say, get the community involved. We had a great go-to-market strategy. We said we would go in, we would build partnerships, we would focus on localization, we would focus on these strategic, getting these feedback loops, getting these people, asking them what they really want. It's almost essentially like building your MVP. It's like you build, that sad version of it, right? And then you take it out and you let people tell you what they want and you build from there. And that's what we wanted to do. I tapped into my network. I tapped into people that I knew and I said, hey, and when I explained to them, this was so amazing. When I explained to them what our mission and our vision was for reaching out to them, they were so receptive and so willing to not gatekeep and open doors for us because they said, here's a company that wants to come in our city. Because some of these cities are very territorial. Like there are certain cities and you go to like cities like Atlanta and you're going to build a business there. If you're not there to serve the people, they don't receive you very well. And so I learned that from just talking to founders and entrepreneurs. And I said, well, because I'm so community driven anyway, I said, let's go talk to the community. Let's let them help us. And so we got on LinkedIn, we tapped into our network and said, hey, do you know people in DC? So we had everybody from law enforcement to university to chairman of banks. We had engineers. We had every very diverse group. And I pitched the company to them based on our mission and our vision. This was not about an investment call. This is about help us understand what it would be like to launch Just Her in your city. And we walked away from that focus group. We held it at a local library, and we found this is the way that we want to go in, because we want the community, the city, to respect what we're doing. We're not just another rideshare. We're not just another Uber and Lyft. We're coming to impact our community. We're coming to solve transportation problems, because one of the other things that I got a really great glimpse at when I was building the company and partnering with great advisors, I didn't understand the mobility on a macro level, like the impact of limited transportation for some people, whether it is in a marginalized community, a transportation desert, first mile, last mile. It is, you would not believe it, but transportation is a global problem. We do partnership with one of the organizations in Charlotte, the Urban League of Charlotte. There was a young lady that we were transporting, Marcia, 12 minutes it would take us to pick her up and drop her off. On a city bus, it was 2.5 hours. I promise you, once we started looking at mobility problems and limited access to mobility, we thought this is a bigger problem than just a ride to the airport. Like, we've got to do more. And even though our technology is ride sharing, our mission and our vision goes beyond that. But anyway, we tapped into those people and we went in, we had the focus group, and then we had the investment dinner late that evening. And many of the people at the focus group wanted to come to the investment dinner because then they wanted to see the business side. And we only had a couple of seats open. And the couple of people that came actually invested in the company.
Wow.
So we have reached out since then and told those people we're now on WeFunder, so you can now help us out there. So yeah, but it was super important for us to go in and build community with people.
So then what is the expansion strategy moving forward?
Yeah, so we're focused on Nashville and we're doing the very same thing. We're building community with people. We're trying to forge partnerships with people. We understand it's the bachelorette capital of the country. And so we're, not to mention tourism as well, but also the rideshare data is there. We're going in and we feel like we'll do this with each market, because we feel like if we go in and we find out where the needs are, where the most transportation needs are, then we can focus on how we roll out in each city. It will help us. And of course, obviously, we've laid some groundwork about how much money we would want to spend. The beauty about what we've been able to do now, although it's been very painful, it has taught us what works and what doesn't work. Now, again, we're not fully there where we have it all figured out, but we see that we don't have to spend $50,000 in this marketing budget to make this work. We've learned how to incentivize drivers. We've learned how to work with what we have and produce, if you will, the 80-20. We've learned all of these things. I would never have known that, Marcia, had I had $1 million 2 years ago. Would have just been putting it out there. Even though that's been painful not to have funding, it has forced us to figure out what really works. And so we'll do that going into each city. And we have a strategic plan, like I said, around partnerships, focusing on localization, not trying to go in too robust, because there is such a thing as scaling too quickly or creating a bad user experience. We want to make sure that we can do it right.
Wow, that's amazing. But then how are you going about marketing the WeFunder campaign? And of course, we'll put links to that in our show notes and everything like that so people can find out about it. But tell us that strategy.
Yeah, thank you. I wish I had the magic bullet for that or the answer. Unfortunately, I do not. In fact, I don't know if what I'm doing is as effective as it could be. And so I'm open for suggestions and opportunities to learn. I was told to market my personal network, my friends and family, my personal network, and my professional network. And that's what I've been doing. And of course, we've built the CRM to help us track. But I do believe that there is a different level to helping in this. I've been hearing things about people being able to help you get it out there. I'm in the beginning stages. Unfortunately, I am working in the company and on the company. I have to split my time between fundraising and operations. So I'm doing the very best that I can with working my list. And there are a lot of people on my list, but I do realize that every person is not going to be our investor. The beautiful thing that I love about this opportunity with WeFunder is that we've gotten to market to our drivers who have invested. Even if it was a $100 investment, we now have over 10,000 customers in our database that we now get to say to them, hey, if you love what we're doing, we have a waiting list of customers around the country.
Wow.
They're waiting for us to launch. We put on our website, new market launch, and we ask them to tell us where they want us to launch. We've been getting feedback. So we have an opportunity to say to them, if you want us to come to your city, then help us get there. We're having to pull out a few stops, but I can't say that I have it all figured out just yet, but I'm working on it.
No, well, it sounds like you're doing it exactly right, because a lot of times I've seen entrepreneurs try to put something together and they think to themselves, well, under normal circumstances, when I say normal, I mean they're going to an angel group or they're trying to do what's considered a 506B, which is a closed. We've talked about that a little bit on the podcast. I don't want to get our listeners being like, what are you talking about with all these things? But if it's a closed offering, then you can't talk about it on social media. You couldn't go on a podcast and talk about it. Then that makes it super challenging. So sometimes I find that entrepreneurs will be like, oh, yeah, now I can talk about it. I can put it on social media. I'm just going to put it on LinkedIn and everybody's going to want to invest. And we know that's not true, right? Social media does not bring investors. It's good to be able to let people know that it's out there. But I think that for somebody to invest, especially at a higher dollar amount, they really have to know you. They have to know the company. They have to really understand the mission of the company, which I think is something that will then take them to the next step of doing something to invest. And they have to have some type of a connection. So I love the way that you're going out to the waiting list. Those are people that know your company. They care about you. They care about the company moving forward. And those are the people that'll be the champions.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely. And one of the other things that I found was so powerful is there were a group of people that I simply just asked them to share. I didn't ask them for an investment. I just said share because I knew the power of sharing. And I said this to our team in our meeting on Tuesday. I said, let me just tell you the power of sharing. I asked one of my founder friends on LinkedIn, would you be so kind to share? And she said, absolutely, I will share this. And she did. She put it on LinkedIn. The very first response was from a gentleman that said, I want to invest in your company, but I will not do it on WeFunder. And I said, okay, well, he's the one I was telling you about earlier, the data guy that was reluctant because of this cybersecurity. And so we talked and we met. We talked on the phone. And I said to him, why? Like, what is your reason behind investing after we found out a little bit about each other? And we found out that we were from the same area. We were raised, we're on my father's side because my mother and father split when I was young. And we would be with my mother during the winter and with my father during summers. And so on my father's side, he knew all of my family. In fact, one of my cousins took care of his grandmother and his grandfather. And she was much older. She was like my father and my mother's age. But I said to him, what's your reason? And he said, I don't use ride sharing. My family doesn't need ride sharing. He said, but I'm intrigued by your mission and your vision. I told the team the power of sharing. If you can't do anything, if you can't invest and you share it just share it because you never know. And I think that's also a good way of maybe reaching out, genuinely letting people know what your mission and your vision is, and just simply saying, if this doesn't align with your investment, just please share. That has helped a lot.
Well, I just love that you're so focused on community, mobility, transportation, the solutions for the community that are so important. And I think that what you're doing, not to mention the whole thing with being safe, having a safe place for women to work, to be able to get picked up, to get to where they need to go, all of those things. I really just love what you're doing, Kimberly. Thank you for doing it.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
All right. We will put all of the links in the show notes, but for the most part, where can people find Just Her Rideshare information?
Yeah, obviously our website is justherrideshare.com. You can follow us on all social media platforms at Just Her Ride. But also something very interesting on our website, we have a community platform called Just Her Hub. We call them our hubbers. It is an extension of our rideshare. There's a pipeline of about 1,500 women all over the country. And it's a place where we connect and engage and support each other. And we support other businesses. We highlight their authors and teachers and doctors. And we want people, our community and other people to know how we support them. So that's Just Her Hub as well. That's also on the website. And then, of course, the WeFunder campaign is wefunder.com/Just Her Rideshare.
Love it. Well, Kimberly, thanks so much for being on the podcast today and telling us all about all this.
Marcia, thank you so much for having me. I feel so special. And I was so honored. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Also, I just want to say really quickly, thank you for the work that you do. I follow you. I know the good that you're doing. And I'm super proud that you are an advocate for us. Continue to do great work.
Thank you. Thanks for listening. To connect with me, visit my website at marciadawood.com. And please subscribe, follow, and leave a review. It helps the podcast get seen by more people. And remember, you can also find the Angel Next Door podcast on YouTube too. And if you're looking to learn more about investing in the changes you want to see in the world, sign up for Ann and Bill Payne's ACA Angel University classes. Go to theangelcapitalassociation.org, all one word, to find out the schedule. And classes are now available on demand. Many classes are offered, everything from angel investing basics, which include fundamentals, risk, due diligence, term sheets, valuations, returns and portfolio strategy, and even a class on group formation. There's even a deeper dive where you can get advanced classes, including capitalization tables, startup boards, and exit strategies. If you're not already a member of the Angel Capital Association, you can become one for a low price that will give you unparalleled access to discounts, free webinars with a huge archive of content, networking opportunities, and much more. We'd love to have you join us. All content for this website is informational and not intended to serve as legal, tax, accounting, or investing advice. Well, Marcia, that's me, does serve on the SEC Small Business Capital Formation Advisory Committee. My views are my own and not the views of the SEC or my fellow colleagues on the committee. Our speakers and hosts are thoughtfully selected for their educational value, but their opinions are their own and do not necessarily represent the views of the host, me, or the Angel Capital Association, and neither specifically endorse the use of presenters' products or services. Listeners of the podcast should consult their own tax, investing, legal, or accounting advisors before making important financial decisions. All warranties, including accuracy, completeness, and suitability for specific purpose, are disclaimed.